And we are officially live on everything. Welcome back to Deal Flow Live, ladies and gentlemen. This is the show where we break down business acquisition deals. We show it from the buyer side and the seller side. We talk about what kind of person should buy a business like this, and we talk about how it might look like if you were selling a business like this. And today, we've actually got something pretty special in store. But first, I'm one of your hosts, Brody Vinson.
And I'm your other host, Ryan Santo.
And we are actually looking today at whether or not Ryan should buy this particular HVAC company. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. This is not a drill. Ryan is actually considering buying this HVAC company after searching wide and far. And we will talk about why he's considering buying it. We can't give you all the details behind the scenes quite yet. There will be more details to come in future episodes, probably. But this is one that Ryan's actually seriously considering buying. We're going to talk a little bit about why, how he came across it, and what kinds of things we might propose to make this deal happen.
Yeah.
Ryan, tell me a little bit about how you found this deal just as someone searching for a business acquisition and what caught your eye and piqued your interest.
Well, I guess the really uncool, unsexy thing is that it was about 1 a.m. and I was scrolling through many listing sites again, as I normally do in the middle of the night. And I spend a lot of time looking at deals and businesses on these sites. So it's no joke to say that almost every waking hour I'm like scouring and reading through them. So this one was up, and normally I just look in the Orlando area, but something possessed me to say, just look at all Florida. Just take a look. And I did. And this popped up, and I thought, oh, okay. Having done restaurant work before, I understand that like in HVAC, fridge technician is worth their weight in gold times 2 at this point, because when somebody's fridge goes down or they need their hood cleaned.
Sorry to interrupt. Cheyenne 006, I will get to your question just a minute after Ryan finishes here.
I know how much those things can cost, especially when they're done, a couple days in advance. But most of the time, a fridge dies and there is no spare. So those call outs can cost a bunch of money. It's a big money maker. Their specialization in commercial and residential, and also the fact that they're all word of mouth for the most part, is incredibly good. So the price was actually about within what I would like. I mean, I can go a little bit higher on the scale, but I thought, even though the EBITDA to price is a little bit over 3 for this size, it still was reasonable based on the potential that I could see and the fact that the owner is making almost $200K off it. It's a tough sale, but at the FF&E being added into it, okay, I can see where that might work. So a lot of other things as well, but let's get to the question.
So Cheyenne 006 asked, what about HVAC seems so appealing for PE guys? Ryan's got his opinion too, but I'll kind of start us off here. So with HVAC, the biggest thing I would say that's appealing is it's stable and steady. It's something that's not going to be going out of style, so to speak, anytime soon. If your air conditioning system breaks, you're going to have to replace it. That's pretty much just how it goes. Like, it's not something that's an option. It's just going to happen. So these companies do really well because even if you're a terrible business person, you can kind of just fall hand and foot over into success with an HVAC company if you have a pulse and at least can, kind of stick to doing the same thing over and over again. So these companies do really, really well. They're solid and steady and stable and just tend to continue to grow. They also tend to get a decent amount of recurring revenue if you structure them right. And it's kind of an opportunity. You can sell things like maintenance agreements and maintenance memberships and things like that. They also fold into like other interior services very well. So there's one particular HVAC roll-up that I know of that a partner of mine worked on, where they went out and bought one HVAC company initially, added a couple more, and also some plumbing companies. And over the course of a couple of years, we're able to really make it into a massive, massive company because they were cross-selling the services back and forth. They added plumbing to all the HVAC customers and vice versa. And it works as well for things like electrical work, home integration services. There's just a lot that you can kind of cross-sell with it. So those are a few of the reasons. Anything else that appeals to you in particular, Ryan?
Oh, first and foremost, the people. I grew up working a lot of odd jobs in the summer, especially when it came to lawn care, drywalling, and a lot of people around were GC. So there was a lot of work to be done in the winter, working with snow removal. And they're just some of the nicest and just some of those down to earth people. So they're really great to work with. And I think that people don't understand just how smart tradespeople really are because they don't think the job is smart, but it's a really fun concept to me to be able to say, hey, let's partner together on this where I can help do the businessy stuff that maybe you find annoying and you don't want to deal with that. You just want to be growing the business, meeting the people. I mean, most business people we talk to are like, look, I just want to go out to talk to clients. I want to work with my guys and I don't want to bother with the other stuff. So if I can help that person achieve that life they want by helping them, by taking, I'll take some equity and I'll take the responsibilities off your plate. You just be the guy of the company. That's awesome to me because I am fascinated by accounting and numbers and where does this go and whatnot, and making sure that the ownership and me have a good idea of where he wants and what he wants to do. So it's a fun relationship. And also it's AI will never take this job. This job is never going away. Doesn't matter how well you train a robot, there will always be things that a human brain needs to quantify. And it's damn near impossible to remove these, or as friend of the show, Patrick Lang told us, you show me a man that is willing to tell his wife in the heat of summer that he is not going to get the HVAC fixed no matter what the price, and I'll show you a liar.
I love it. So there's a lot of reasons to answer your question that it appeals to PE guys or just someone who's considering acquiring a business to run themselves or to add to their portfolio, kind of like Ryan's looking at here. So I think it really makes sense at this stage for us to just break down the deal a little bit and talk about how it might work. What do you think?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's run it.
So I'm going to kind of like zoom in here a little bit on a few of the key aspects. First thing, the asking price is $770,000. The gross revenue, a little over $1 million. And you're welcome, Shane. Let us know if you've got any other questions as well. That was an awesome question. EBITDA is 189, just a little over 200. I like that it lists that as EBITDA and not cash flow, actually, because that probably that may or may not mean that there's not really add backs in it already. Usually when if they're correctly referring to it as EBITDA, that probably means it's not necessarily accounting for like things like owner salary and other little like things that often get added back into it. So that might mean that 189 is pretty accurate. Yeah. Right off the bat, the biggest thing I want to point out here, though, is that they say that they're open to seller financing right up here. So seller financing available. That's a very quick trigger to say that this is a deal that also, what's up, John? Glad to have you in the chat. Let us know if you have any questions. We're breaking down an HVAC deal that Ryan is thinking about buying out of Jacksonville, Florida. The other thing, so with the seller financing, you very well could structure this $770,000 payment where parts of it are due just over time, over the course of 2, 3, 4, 5. I've even heard of 10 years. Heard of some people acquiring them and having it financed over 10 years. And that means that if the business is making money every year, it starts to kind of pay for itself, at least in part. So you might not have to put down all the money at once. There's also the possibility of getting an SBA loan, something that we talked about.
Yeah.
One thing, and this is the thing that I told you before the show started, I was going to kind of spring on you that we haven't really talked about before. One thing that someone told me about today that was very interesting is often you have this issue with seller financing when you're working on a business that's represented by a business broker where it's totally at odds with them getting their commission check. If they're between two different buyers of a business and one is saying, I'll get an SBA loan and put down all the cash up front, or at least most of it up front, then that means the broker is going to get their commission check. Once the business sells, they can ride off into the sunset and work on other deals. If it's seller financed, then instead the broker might be getting that money in installments over time, and only if it's successful and they become another kind of a person that has to manage the deal and make sure that it's happening properly. A friend of mine that is rolling up veterinary clinics actually out of actually, I'm not going to say where because I don't want to give away too many details from him. but he's rolling up veterinary clinics. He was telling me earlier today that something that you could do is you could approach the broker and say, hey, as a buyer, I'll actually match your commission on the sell side if we do some seller financing. So you can kind of get the broker on your side for the seller financing and have them kind of help you propose it and explain it. And they're often a very influential figure in the deal. So that's a strategy I just hadn't heard about until today, but I find that very fascinating.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the way that, if that ends up being the way this deal works, I would probably go about it that way. Because I want to hit every road bump before it shows up. And for me, seller financing out the gate, it's almost like extending a hand for a handshake. Like they're already saying, look, we know what we got. It's good. We understand that to get it, it may take a little bit. Let's help each other out. So I'm already willing to hear this person out in their entirety and also say, what as the seller do you really want? What is your vision? Let me try to match that, because we always want to do that. But this is a guy who's already making the saying like, look, I'll even help you as buyer. So if the financials are good and let's say, and it's not deteriorating over the last 5 years, I want to make sure this guy is taken care of. I want to make sure he gets the best deal and do whatever I can right by him and his people. So because he's already shown me he's going to do right by me, I'll treat your broker well, treat you well. So it's already off on a good start just on the rip.
That's exactly right. So I think, as far as the financials look here with the seller financing, with the price, I think it's reasonable.
Yeah.
Could be better. I would probably either
FF&E definitely gets it closer to the 3X, but I get it.
That's true. Yep. It does have $100,000 worth of furnitures, fixtures, and equipment. So you're paying for some of that stuff as well.
But I definitely but again, with everything going on, I'm going to hear him out. 770. Oh man, that's higher than I would normally look at. I mean, what's the reasoning for it? How'd you come to that number? Like that, like I'm going to ask, I'm going to play ball with you. And if you're like, oh yeah, the seller will hold 170K. Okay, well that's 600, 200 times 3. That's 3X. Okay, that's reasonable. Yeah, I still have to pay the 770, but they took it right off the top for me. This is a hypothetical, obviously, but this is where I would say, okay, I'll talk with you. Like I'm more willing not to just write it off as somebody who's just trying to make a quick exit and a quick buck. I'm like, okay, there's some play here. Also, importantly, this person's a former Coca-Cola refrigerator technician, which means they have a very good knowledge of HVAC as well, especially refrigeration. And that's a hard job. So anything I can do to make this guy's life a bit more comfortable, happy to do it.
Also, hey, Neil Acquisitions. Always great to have you on the show, tuning in. And to answer your question, he says, this may be a strange question, but are there any challenges off the wall that you're expecting to face on seller financing? Yeah, of course. There's always going to be challenges pitching something like that. When you compare getting all of the cash up front for a business that you're selling to having some of it seller financed, obviously the one sounds more attractive than the other. And there's an element of uncertainty with seller financing where if the business isn't succeeding, then it won't necessarily all come. So there's definitely some risk there. I would say to try to combat some of those things, there are pros to seller financing as well. One of them being if you take an entire purchase price for a business and that you get as the seller of that business, if you get it all in 1 year, then you pay taxes on that whole thing at a much larger rate. So whatever your amount of income is that year, you're going to be taxed at a higher rate because of the higher amount, and you're going to have to pay all of it at once. You're going to make far less from the deal overall. If you instead finance it over a few years in installments, you might be at a lower tax rate every year, and you get to kind of spread that out over time and kind of make less that way. There's also something called the law of price and terms. That's not necessarily a scientific rule, but it's kind of a deal term that we like to use that says, I'll use this business as an example. If this guy is very firm on his price of $770,000 for the asking price, and he doesn't want to budge on that, then it would make sense as a buyer to say, okay, well, we'll go by your price of 770, but I'm going to pitch my terms, which are we're going to do 70% of it seller financing and only 30% cash down at the beginning. Or you could make another offer. You could make a second offer along with that says, let's go. We could also go instead by my price in your terms, and we could say, let's do 30% of it seller financing, but so you get more cash up front, but let's say 600,000 for the business or something like that, right? You could make those multiple offers and kind of like allow them to see that, like, if there is going to be more seller financing, they might get more out of the business total. You can also attach interest to seller financing. So the same way that you pay interest on a loan at the bank, you could have extra interest for the business that goes to the seller, so they make more of like a total purchase price off of the business, make a little bit of mailbox money as they go, and kind of use that to go on and, you know, have their future income. So there's a lot of ways that you can overcome those challenges as well.
And I do believe in the interest. I do believe in always adding interest when it's a seller to make it fair, because if somebody's gonna be the bank for me, be paid like the bank. And if they, you know, sometimes they don't realize that they can have interest, and sometimes knowing that they can make interest on a payment, they're willing to take on a little bit more. Because they're like, oh well, interest payments. If I'll make more direct than the SB. If I can take away from the SBA and I can pocket extra, instead of 770, I make 820 over the next 4 years. So it's like, yeah, you made money. Your business got better. I made more money, and then you got basically a kickback on top of what you held for me. So it's a way to also make sure that the seller, after the end of this, whether they're staying on or not, is kind of getting an extra cushion of income after the sale.
That's exactly right. To kind of finalize the breakdown of this deal, there's 3 employees. It's based out of Jacksonville, Florida. Little bit of a detractor because Ryan is based out of Orlando. But this is the type of business that Ryan would be buying as an investment and not something to run as a full-time operator.
Well, I mean that's kind of, I'm buying it to grow it as a business owner, but I don't want to buy a business like this that I would then have to immediately jump into and learn all those things. The reason this appealed to me again was the fact that the owner really wants to stay on, by the way they said it. In his current role, he clearly likes what he does. He likes the people he works with. He's just looking for somebody else to handle the business side of it, and he wants to stay on in his current role, doing his stuff, holding the license. So a partnership in an industry where I will take care of your business stuff. Yeah, that's what I love to do. You're going to take care of your guys and the stuff. Yeah, perfect. Great. You do that. I'll make sure the money comes in. I'll make sure you stay paid, and I'll keep a roof over our heads and try to get more business so that we can all go home happy. So that's really what I'm looking for. Somebody who wants to essentially, you know, buy a business and then almost make a partnership out of it after I purchased it. Cause like, you know, part of my deal is like, hey, if you want to hold 5% equity, you know, you can keep making money on this thing. I'll pay 95% of what you want. You can have a front 5%. You're just getting a bam, your salary plus a little bit on top of that gravy. Let me take care of you. Let me show you I can take care of this business with you.
I love it. If you are the owner of this particular HVAC business, it doesn't say what the business is named or anything like that, obviously, on the listing. But if you're the owner of this HVAC business and you happen to be watching this, I thought that was a pretty good pitch by Ryan. If I was the owner, I'd be feeling pretty good about that.
Small businesses are people's babies. You got to take care of them.
So Ryan, final take on this business.
I love it. I think it's you know, somebody who started this in 2016. It's almost a decade old. They're doing solid revenue. They got a little bit higher asking price, but with your FF&E and some other stuff, it is actually fairly fair. 3 people and him, or him and 2 people. That's crazy. You're doing $1 million. And then they have a network of subcontractors. They barely do any marketing. They have the refrigeration specialty on top of it. They're doing hospitals. They're doing commercial sites, not just new builds, but actually servicing commercial places. So a lot to love about this. A lot of good stuff. Clearly, they rent, which is great. I don't have to deal with a mortgage on a place that I'd be buying. So everything looking good. I think this person's probably taking great care of their business and their people. And I would hopefully, if this thing works out, I'll be able to help take care and grow it even further.
That's great stuff. Any parting words you want to leave the audience with today, as you know, someone tuning in who might be thinking about acquiring a business in the future?
Definitely do your research and call up brokers. Don't just email. Call them up, ask the questions, watch the content that we've had the last couple episodes. You're going to learn a lot about how to speak the language and what people do. I mean, I think me and Brody collectively have been doing this for just about 2 years almost. So it's taken us up to this point to really get where we are. It's taken me up to this point to be able to say, like, okay, confidently, I can call up a broker, have a good one-to-one conversation, and I can look at a deal like this and go, you know what? Financials are right. I have the materials, the network, and the people where I can actually take care of this thing.
That's awesome stuff. And as you know, one final word that I would say as well, just if you're looking at this, stay in the pocket. I talked to a friend earlier today, who got started on his whole like journey of trying to acquire a business 18 months ago. And he's kind of just getting to the final stages on his first deal right now. And so this stuff could take some time. Don't expect it to happen overnight, and just make sure that you stay in the pocket, keep searching, keep being a student of it, and eventually it'll happen for you if you do those things and you're smart about it. Neil Acquisitions, final question here. He said, awesome advice. What's a great way to intro to a broker? Call them about a deal. That's what they want to talk about. I'll keep it as simple as that.
If you want to know the questions, Patrick Lang in our last video gave away a lot of game about what brokers like to hear from possible sellers and what they hate to hear from possible sellers. So he kind of gave a playbook on what to say and what not to say.
Yeah, the last episode of Deal Flow Live that Ryan and I did, we interviewed an HVAC broker.
137 HVAC alone, 200 plus businesses over his time.
Yep, he has sold a ridiculous amount of businesses. Go check that one out if you want to understand what brokers are looking for and how to kind of speak their language. But really call them about a deal, call them about a particular deal, and express real interest in it, and have your homework done so that you don't just sound like you're trying to get an education through them. You can ask them questions about the business, but have your homework done a little bit, know what you're talking about, and continue watching this show every Tuesday night at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time so that you can be a student of the game with us. We're not above anyone by any means in this stuff. We've just been working on this for a little bit now, and we're students of the game and just want to learn with you guys. So tune in, bring your questions. We're happy to answer them or to explore things with you. We're sitting here learning with you as we go, and just trying to make this stuff happen. But I've been one of your hosts, Brody Vinson.
And I'm your other host, Ryan Santo.
And you can find Ryan or I on LinkedIn for me at Brody Vinson MBA on LinkedIn, for Ryan at Ryan Santo MBA on LinkedIn. Shoot us a message there and just let us know what you want to see covered on the show, and we will answer it and we'll cover it on the show. Until next time, every Tuesday night, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, tune into Deal Flow Live to hear these deals broken down live. See you on the next one.
See ya. I like this deal.
I do too.